All right, let's talk about adding the opposite. um, I don't know, you may be different than me, of course, but when I look at the first few examples, it seems like adding the opposite is more work than takeaway. But when I look at the last few examples, it seems like adding the opposite is a lot easier than takeaway. Ultimately, though, it doesn't really matter what's easier. We want to understand both ways, right? We want to understand both ways, and we want to understand the connection between them, right? Again, I'm kind of thinking of this exercise as a way of proving that adding the opposite is the same as takeaway. All right. So let's just see what happens when we add the opposite. So if I want to do 4 minus 3, okay, adding the opposite means that I change the subtraction to addition, and I take the opposite of the second number, right? So I change the sign of the second number. So I'm really thinking of this as 4 plus negative 3. And we've worked with addition already. You watched a video about how to add tiles, how to add integers with algebra tiles. You read about it in the textbook a little bit. So let's see, 4 plus negative 3. I'm going to have 4 positive tiles. And then I'm going to add 3 negative tiles. And I like to stack them like this so that I can cancel off my 0 pairs, right? So now I know that I have those 0 pairs, and I'm going to be left with 1. Okay. The way that I would draw this out is as follows. So I would say I'm starting with 4 positive tiles, and then I'm adding 3 negative tiles. You could put a plus sign, like some people do it like this. Some people show it like this. They put a plus sign and then equals, and they cross off the 0 pairs, and they're left with just 1 positive tile, right? So you could show your work that way, or some other way, right? Doesn't matter. I'll probably show the next one differently. But there you go, right? That's how adding the opposite works. It required a little bit more drawing than takeaway, right? On this particular example. Let's do the next one. Let's do 5 minus 2. So I'll let you do 5 minus 2. Okay, pause the video. See if you can do 5 minus 2 using adding the opposite, not takeaway. Do adding the opposite. Okay, so here's my solution. So I've got 5 tiles. I want to do 5 minus 2. So really I'm thinking of this as 5 plus negative 2, right? So I'm going to add 2 negative tiles. And now those are 0 pairs, so I'm left with 3. Okay? So drawing it out, I would say, all right, 5 plus negative 2. The 0 pairs cancel. I have 3 positive tiles left. Okay? Let's do negative 7 minus 3. Or sorry, negative 7 minus negative 3. Negative 7 minus negative 3. Okay, give the video a pause. See if you can do it on your own. Okay, I'm going to work out my solution. Negative 7 minus negative 3. If I'm thinking of this as adding the opposite, this is going to be negative 7 plus positive 3. Right? So it's just going to be negative 7 plus 3. I'm not even going to use the tiles. I'm just going to go ahead and draw this thing. So I've got negative 7 and I'm going to add 3. The 0 pairs cancel. I'm left with 4 negative tiles. Okay, and so far the answers are matching up, right? We're getting the same answer whether we use takeaway or adding the opposite. And this leads us to believe, right, that adding the opposite is the same thing as takeaway, right? We can further convince ourselves. Let's continue on. Do 3 minus 5. Okay, pause the video, see if you can do 3 minus 5 on your own. Here's my solution. So 3 minus 5 is going to be the same as 3 plus negative 5, or at least this is what we suspect to be the case, right? So 3 minus 5 is 3 plus negative 5. So I'm going to have 3 tiles, 3 positive tiles, and then I'm going to add 5 negative tiles. The 0 pairs cancel, and I'm left with negative 2. Right, same answer as before. Okay, so it's pretty interesting that this works. You know what I mean? That subtracting is the same thing as adding the opposite. It's kind of an interesting thing. One of the ways that you can sort of make sense of this in your mind is to think about how multiplication and division work. It's like, so we've talked about the fact that 12 divided by 3 is really just trying to undo the multiplication 3 times 4, right? 12 divided by 3, you're thinking to yourself, 3 times what equals 12? So subtraction is sort of the same way. It's trying to undo addition. And so in some way, it makes sense that to do subtraction, we would add the opposite, right? Because we're trying to undo some kind of addition that was done, I guess. But we'll see even more clearly if we keep going, look at a few more examples, we'll see even more clearly. I think this next example actually really shows pretty clearly why adding the opposite is the same as takeaway. So let's do negative 3 minus negative 6. Or actually, it's not this one. I think it's the next two. The last 2 examples, they really show pretty clearly why adding the opposite is the same as takeaway. But anyway, but we'll do, for the sake of completeness, let's do negative 3 minus negative 6. Pause the video, see if you can work it out. Okay, here's my solution. So I'm starting with negative 3 tiles. Oh, I guess I should say, right? If I'm adding the opposite, then this is saying negative 3 plus positive 6, right? So I'm starting with negative 3 tiles, and then I want to add 6 positive tiles. Okay, 0 pairs cancel, and I'm left with 3 positive tiles, just like before. Okay, but let's look at 5 minus negative 2. Like I said, this one I think really kind of drives the point home that adding the opposite is the same thing as takeaway. All right, so 5 minus negative 2. Give the video a pause, see if you can work it out. Okay, here's my solution. So I'm thinking of this as 5 plus 2. So I'm starting with 5 positive tiles, and then I'm adding 2 positive tiles. Now don't scratch these off, right? They don't cancel because they're not 0 pairs. These are the same sign. So really, I just have 7 positive tiles, right? This is just 7 positive tiles. The reason that I think this one really drives the point home is that, so remember when we were doing the takeaway model, we started off with 5 positive tiles, and then we needed to take away 2 negative tiles. Well, we didn't have any negative tiles to take away, so we had to add 2 0 pairs so that we had 2 negative tiles to take away. But notice that the end result of that is that what you've really done is you started with your 5 positive tiles, and then you just added 2 positive tiles. Right? So that 5 minus negative 2 really is just the same thing as 5, right? 5 plus 2. Okay? You can see it in the picture that we drew earlier, right? That 5 minus negative 2 is exactly the same thing as 5 plus 2, right? You can see it there. So I think that's a really beautiful illustration of why subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Okay, let's do the last one. Negative 4 minus 3. Okay, give the video a pause. See if you can do it on your own. Okay, here's my solution. So I'm thinking of this as negative 4 plus negative 3. So I'm going to start with 4 negative tiles. Then I'm going to add 3 negative tiles. Okay, don't cancel these because they're not 0 pairs, right? They have the same sign. Really, this is just 7 negative tiles, right? So I end up with negative 7 as my final answer. Again, you can see pretty clearly in this diagram, you can see pretty clearly why negative 4 minus 3 is the same as negative 7, right? We started with 4 negative tiles. Then we needed to take away 3 positive tiles, but we didn't have any positive tiles to take away. So we added 3 0 pairs so that we could take away the 3 positive tiles. But the effect of that, the end result of that, was that we started with negative 4 tiles, and then we added on 3 more negative tiles, right? So this is really negative 4 plus negative 3. And so you can see very clearly, right, that negative 4 minus 3 is the same as negative 4 plus negative 3. So that does it for our discussion of subtraction, adding the opposite versus takeaway.